What if the same team that negotiates an $11 million star also brings back a tough AHL veteran? What does this reveal about the Maple Leafs' true plan for the 2025 playoffs? When a historic franchise makes such contradictory moves, what message is being sent to the locker room and fans? Toronto is a city where hockey pressure is palpable. In the snow-covered streets, in bar conversations, in sports programs, one name echoes insistently: Mitch Marner, the star who divides opinions, the ace who set a personal record this season, but still carries the burden of faded performances in previous playoffs. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, an almost unnoticed movement happens with the call-up of Ryan Reeves from the Toronto Marlies. Two players who couldn't be more different, connected by the same decisive moment in the history of a traditional franchise. The Maple Leafs carry the weight of not winning the Stanley Cup since 1967. 58 years of waiting. Generations were born and grew up without seeing Toronto lift hockey's most coveted trophy. And now, on the eve of another playoff battle against the Ottawa Senators, the organization makes two moves that may define not only this postseason, but the franchise's future for the next few years. The tension in the air is almost tangible. The contrast between these two figures perfectly symbolizes the dilemma Toronto faces. On one hand, we have Marner, the prodigy, the personification of pure talent and spotlight. On the other, Reeves, the old guard warrior, the one who does the dirty work away from the flashes. Two playing styles, two hockey philosophies, two distinct visions of how to build a champion. You're watching the only channel that reveals the hidden connections between the seemingly disconnected decisions of NHL teams. If you're truly passionate about hockey and want to understand the mental chess happening in general managers' offices, leave your like now and subscribe. This community is for those who see beyond obvious headlines, for those seeking to understand the subtext of the fastest sport on the planet. Join us and be part of the select group that understands hockey in its total complexity. Let's get to the facts. Mitch Marner has just completed his best regular season in his career with an impressive 102 points. A historic milestone for any player, an undeniable demonstration of offensive talent. During the Canadian winter, when injuries plagued the Leafs roster, it was Marner who carried the team on his back, including a memorable overtime victory against the Edmonton Oilers. His points certainly deserve mention in the press, stated Brad Treliving, the team's general manager. There was a period when we had many players out. It was November, maybe December, and Mitch really helped us a lot. Words carefully chosen by Treliving, the same man who, according to reliable sources, tried to trade Marner before the deadline. The kind of diplomatic statement executives make when trying to preserve the market value of a valuable asset. Even while considering its sale, the player himself confirmed the rumors circulating behind the scenes. I have a feeling that maybe something could happen, but I'm here to play hockey with this team. I'm focused on this team. That's what I can say. A measured, cautious response from an athlete who knows he's treading on thin ice. For those knowledgeable in body language, Marner's facial expressions during that interview revealed more than his carefully chosen words. Discomfort, disappointment, the feeling of someone who discovers that, despite all his talent, he remains just a movable piece in the great corporate board of professional sports. Simultaneously, in a move that went almost unnoticed by the mainstream press, Toronto calls up Ryan Reeves from the Toronto Marlies, a 38-year-old veteran with just 2 assists in 35 games this season for the Leafs. The player who had been placed on waivers and sent to the AHL precisely to free up salary cap space now returns to the main team. What explains this decision? In the corridors of Scotiabank Arena, the answer is whispered. Toronto is preparing for a physical series against Ottawa and needs Reeves' intimidating presence. The Senators have built a reputation as a tough and relentless team, especially in playoff series where the level of physical intensity increases considerably. But there's a deeper reading, a subplot that few analysts dare to explore. This call-up signals a philosophical change in roster construction, exactly when the future of their most refined star is at stake. Diving into the backstage of the situation, we discover a latent tension that began more than a year ago. Marner's contract ends after this season, turning him into an unrestricted free agent. In practical terms, This means any NHL team can try to sign him without needing to compensate Toronto. For a franchise valued in billions of dollars, the prospect of losing such a valuable asset without receiving anything in return is a financial and sporting nightmare. Meanwhile, criticism about his playoff performance continues to grow, especially considering his astronomical salary that commits a significant portion of the salary cap. The boiling point came when the Maple Leafs management contacted Marner about the possibility of waiving his no-movement clause, a delicate request rarely made to players of this caliber. This was directly linked to discussions with the Carolina Hurricanes, who had recently acquired Mikko Rantanen. The negotiation advanced to the point where Marner was informed of the situation, a clear indication of how close he came to trading the blue and white jersey for the red, black, and white of the Hurricanes. The negotiation did not materialize. Rantanen ended up going to the Dallas Stars, but the cards were on the table. The relationship between player and franchise would never be the same. In contrast, Reeves represents everything Marner is not. Physical, intimidating, with impressive 1,100 penalty minutes in 912 NHL games. While Marner is the artist, the creator, the one who makes the crowd stand up with impossible passes and disconcerting dribbles, Reeves is the executor, the protector, the player who makes opponents think twice before approaching the team stars. His call-up from the AHL, where he scored his first goal since 2010, is neither coincidence nor purely tactical decision. The Maple Leafs are sending a clear message about the type of hockey they intend to play against Ottawa and, potentially, about the future direction of the franchise. This duality reveals the franchise's fundamental dilemma: bet all chips on offensive talents like Marner, who shine in the regular season but face difficulties in playoffs, or diversify with players like Reeves, who bring intangible elements to high-pressure series. It's an eternal discussion about style versus substance, about spectacle versus results. Toronto has been criticized for years for building aesthetically pleasing, offensively potent teams, but lacking the toughness necessary to survive the trenches of playoffs. The statistics tell different stories for each player. Marner recorded 102 points this season, surpassing his personal record. His 27 goals and 75 assists place him among the league's offensive elite, a world-class producer and distributor. Reeves, on the other hand, totaled just 2 assists in 35 games. Numbers that, in isolation, would be insufficient to justify a roster spot. However, when the playoff lights turn on, the currency changes. Hockey becomes tougher, space diminishes, and pressure increases exponentially. Winning a playoff series requires a delicate balance between skill and tenacity. In his previous playoff appearances, Marner failed to replicate his regular season dominance. Defenses close up, marking intensifies, and the space to create magic on the ice practically disappears. For a player with an $11 million annual salary, the expectation is for decisive contribution when it matters most. It's in these moments that the contract is really justified or questioned. Hockey, like any elite sport, is a business of results. Meanwhile, Reeves, earning a fraction of that value, brings a dimension that the team has lacked in previous eliminations. Physical presence, intimidation, protection for stars, and that element of unpredictability that can destabilize the opponent. The possible scenarios from here are fascinating and multiple. If Marner dominates these playoffs and takes Toronto beyond the first round, something that has rarely happened in the last decade, his market value will skyrocket even more. The Leafs will be in an uncomfortable position. Offer a potentially astronomical contract to keep him or watch their star leave for a competitor, possibly strengthening a direct rival. If he fails again under pressure, if the demons of previous playoffs come back to haunt him, the justification for a trade will be solidified in the eyes of the management and fans. A classic case of high risk, high reward. As for Reeves, his presence in the playoffs can redefine the team's identity. There are no roster limits or salary cap in the NHL during the postseason, which means Toronto can explore all dimensions of its roster without immediate financial restrictions. This flexibility allows coach Sheldon Keefe to adapt the strategy game by game, series by series. Against a physically imposing team like Ottawa, Reeves can be used as a weapon of intimidation, a presence that neutralizes the opposing agitators. The simple presence of a respected enforcer on the bench alters the psychological dynamics of a series. The decision to call up Reeves was not taken lightly. Sources close to the locker room indicate that tension is palpable among the players. There is a collective awareness that this may be the last chance for the specific core. Matthews, Nylander, Tavares, and Marner together. An offensive quartet that cost the Leafs coffers more than $40 million per season. A colossal investment that, so far, has not yielded the expected return in elimination series. Hockey has a cruel and unforgiving competitive window. Teams are assembled and disassembled quickly, especially when results don't appear. The Senators, first-round opponents, closely observe every Toronto move. The provincial rivalry of Ontario, one of the oldest and most intense in Canadian hockey, gains a new chapter loaded with subtexts. Ottawa is rebuilding its identity, emerging from years of mediocrity with a young and hungry core. They see in the Leafs' internal fractures a golden opportunity. Each Marner error will be amplified by the media and exploited by opponents. Each physical intervention by Reeves, each successful intimidation, will be celebrated as proof of the necessity of his presence. Behind the technical and strategic decisions, there is also the inescapable financial factor. In a league with a rigid salary cap, where every dollar needs to be optimized, keeping Marner would mean committing approximately 13% of the total budget to a single player. The inevitable question that haunts the Leafs executives is it worth it? Has the return on this investment been sufficient? The call-up of Reeves, on the other hand, represents the search for value in unexpected places, in players with smaller salaries who can contribute at specific moments, optimizing every cent of the salary cap. The historical context makes this moment even more dramatic. Toronto, one of the NHL's original franchises, carries the weight of decades of unmet expectations. The pressure from the Canadian media, relentless and omnipresent, amplifies every decision, every performance. Players who stand out in smaller markets frequently succumb to Toronto's constant microscope. It's in this pressure cooker that Marner must prove his worth, while Reeves, paradoxically, operates with much less scrutiny due to the drastically different expectations about his role. And so we arrive at the crucial question, the one that keeps executives, coaches, players, and millions of fans awake. What are these simultaneous moves? The uncertainty about Marner's future and the call-up of Reeves reveal about the franchise's direction? Is Toronto preparing for a partial rebuild, centered on Matthews but without Marner? Or are these just tactical adjustments for a specific series, without long-term implications? The NHL's recent history is full of examples of teams that sacrificed a star to achieve greater balance in their roster. The Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup after trading Matt Duchene. The Tampa Bay Lightning became back-to-back champions after difficult decisions about their core. Toronto itself has seen iconic players like Matt Sundin and Phil Kessel depart, with varied results for both sides. The series against Ottawa will begin in less than 48 hours. Strategies are being finalized, players mentally prepared, lines defined. When the puck drops to the first face-off, all speculation will have to give way to the reality of the ice. Marner will have his chance to silence critics or feed skeptics. Reeves will have the opportunity to prove that his call-up was more than symbolic. And all of Toronto, a city obsessed with hockey, will watch with their hearts in their hands. What do you think? Should Toronto do the impossible to keep Marner, or use that money to build a more balanced roster with several second and third tier players who can contribute in different aspects of the game? Is Reeves' call-up just for the playoffs, or does it signal a permanent philosophical change in roster construction? Is the construction model centered on offensive superstars doomed to failure in modern playoffs? Leave your opinion in the comments and participate in the hottest debate in Canadian hockey right now. And don't miss our next exclusive video. We'll have privileged access to the Maple Leafs closed practice, where we can observe firsthand the chemistry between Marner and the rest of the roster on the eve of the first game. The interactions between players, group dynamics, body language during exercises, all of this will say a lot about the backstage climate and the true relationships within this locker room under maximum pressure. Hit the bell now to be the first to discover revelations that no other channel will have access to. This is just the beginning of a journey that could rewrite the history of one of the most valuable and traditional franchises in professional sports. We're talking about decisions that will affect millions of dollars, entire careers, and the future of a Canadian institution. And you are witnessing each chapter, each twist, each decisive moment firsthand. There's no better place to follow this drama than here, with analyses that go beyond the surface and reveal the gears that move professional hockey behind the scenes. The clock is running for Mitch Marner and the Toronto Maple Leafs. When the series ends, when the dust settles, when decisions are made, we will be here to document every detail. History is being written before our eyes, and the next chapter begins now.